but you don't want to be trying to bake in long-term support when you're at the end of the rope. And in Ukraine, on the Ukraine funding, we're coming near to the end of the rope. I mean, today we announced $200 million, and we'll keep that aid going as long as we can, but it's not going to be indefinite. So are we moving with a sense of alacrity? Absolutely. I couldn't give you a date.
This is my video update from Belgrade, Serbia on this Tuesday morning, October 12th. Let's talk about some news and let's go for a walk on the city streets of Belgrade. So, I don't know where I'm walking to or walking towards. By the way, I'm just kind of walking. So let's discuss some news. And how about that statement from Mr. Kirby? How about that statement from Kirby? Boy, this has got to worry Ukraine and the Elensky regime. We went from as long as it takes to the end of the rope, and it's not going to be indefinite. The money and the military aid and the funding is not going to be indefinite. From as long as it takes, and now it's the end of the rope. The end of the rope. Interesting choice of words from Kirby. A very interesting choice of words. Oh boy. So that has got to worry the Elensky regime. That is why he was at the NATO headquarters yesterday. They are in panic mode. And the Elensky regime, they have announced that they are going to, well, they're going to try to travel to Israel in what they are calling a solidarity tour. This is according to Axios. So the strategy that they came up with when he was in Brussels, speaking with Stoltenberg, and I imagine Van der Crazy also sat in on the meeting. The strategy that they have come up with is to try and create the link between Ukraine and Israel. That's the strategy. Give money to Israel, but also give money to Ukraine because they're one and the same, or the one is dependent on the other. That's basically the strategy that they're playing. And so Elensky, his office, they have contacted Netanyahu, and they want Elensky, well, they want the permission from Netanyahu for Elensky to visit Israel so they can create this linkage, this solidarity, the solidarity tour. So, yeah, they are in panic, my friends. They are in panic. When Kirby says something like that, when we have this kind of narrative shift, and this is a big narrative shift coming from the Biden White House, military, financial aid, it's not indefinite. It's big news. Really, really big news. So the IMF, they told the government of Ukraine that the money is not indefinite. Sooner or later, aid coming into Ukraine to pay salaries and keep the economy running is going to dry up. And the IMF, they have advised the Elensky regime that they better start collecting revenue. And the best way to collect revenue is through higher taxes. The IMF tells Ukraine to collect more taxes. Kiev must prepare for when foreign aid dries up. the organization's representative has warned. At the same time, the IMF, they raised their projections for the Russian economy. Russian GDP growth forecast is going to grow by almost 50% than what the IMF had previously projected. The IMF is saying that the Russian economy is going to grow by 2.2% this year. The IMF had it at like 1.2 or 1.4, and now they're saying it's going to grow by around 50% more than they had initially thought. So the IMF, they are telling Ukraine that money's running out and the money's going to stop, so start raising taxes. I don't know how the Elensky regime is going to be able to go to their citizens, to go to the citizens of Ukraine and say, we are going to raise taxes, or we're going to stop subsidies on energy and gas and electricity, and stay in power. I don't know how all of that is going to work. While at the same time, Elensky is losing this conflict, so he's in trouble. I don't know how he is going to spin this one, but as all of this is happening to Ukraine, the Russian economy is surging, and this is coming from the IMF, which is a collective West-run organization. Which way should I go? Oh, we have to go down this way, don't we? Why not? Even the New York Times is saying that Russia's economic growth is going to outpace the EU and the US. The New York Times says that Western sanctions have helped Russia restructure its economy. That is according to the NYT. Let me see if I have a quote here from this article. According to the New York Times, the West's punishing restrictions have in reality only helped Russia restructure its economy as the country pumped money into various industries at a rapid pace, putting almost every available worker into a job and raising the size of weekly paychecks. Total output, which the Russian central bank estimates may rise as much as 2.5% this year, could outpace the European Union and possibly even the United States, according to the NYT. Tatters, I tell you, they are using washing machine chips in their fighter jets. Tatters, I tell you. Oh boy, so Putin was speaking at the Russian Energy Forum. By the way, Putin's going to be going to China next week. This has been confirmed. We don't have the exact dates, but next week he should be in China to meet with Xi Jinping. Huge news there, but he was speaking at the Energy Forum. And Putin, first of all, he said that the current political system in the collective West has a way of raising up the, let's just say, not the smartest of people. So he made that comment. He said the system, somehow it puts into leadership positions people that are not too bright. And then Putin talked about the economies of the European Union, specifically Germany, which is a country that Putin, given his history, has a soft spot for. And not anymore, but in the past, Putin, he speaks fluent German, from what I understand. Putin did have warm feelings about Germany. He was in East Germany for quite a while. And he basically said that, I don't understand. Putin's like, I don't understand the thinking of of the economies of Europe. They destroyed themselves, and for what? He was like, why did they do this to themselves? And he was like, look, European prosperity over the many decades was due to its cooperation with Russia because it was getting cheap gas and oil and energy, commodities, everything, cheap resources from Russia. And they completely destroyed that. And now everything is more expensive. And Putin said that Russia has pivoted towards Asia, while the EU really has nowhere to go. Its only option is expensive LNG. And so that was Putin's statement, which I think is something all of us know by now as to how the economies, how the countries of the European Union decided to self-delete, to put it in a diplomatic wording. Wow, what a beautiful spot. You see, sometimes when you walk around, you stumble upon interesting places. So nice. Have a coffee right here in the morning. Check out the view. It's a good life. So since we're on the topic of Ukraine, the situation on the front lines is not looking very good for the Ukraine military. Basically, across the entire front line, the Ukraine military is in defense. I was going to say is collapsing, but I think that's a bit premature. They are playing defense in many areas. It looks like the Russians are encircling the Ukraine military, or have some sort of cauldron where the supply lines coming into the Ukraine military are under the fire control of the Russians. Avdiivka, I think, is where we should focus on, or if you're interested on learning about what the situation is on the front lines. Avdiivka is definitely the hot spot for now. It looks like the Russians do have the Ukraine military in what is an effectively a cauldron, where the supply lines are under Russian fire control, and Avdiivka is a key city for the Russians to take, to capture. It was from Avdiivka, a very, very heavily fortified city, very close to Donetsk. It was Avdiivka that the Ukraine military would launch many of the attacks into Donetsk, which would kill many civilians. And so it looks like the Russians are moving in the direction of Avdiivka. Kupiansk, the same. The Russians are grinding down the Ukraine military and advancing slowly. As they grind down the Ukraine military, they advance slowly. And also in the southern direction, which is Rabotinya and Verbove. Remember, no, I don't think I'm going the right way. Oh, wait a minute. I know where I am. Yeah, Rabotinya, Verbove. Remember all of that? Remember, Ukraine is breaking through the Russian defenses. They've reached the first line of defense, and they've reached the third line of defense, and the Ukraine military has reached the 10th line of Russian defenses. Remember all that talk over the past month? Well, that's all like being reversed. And now the fear is that the Ukraine military could be facing an encirclement in this direction as well, a type of cauldron in the southern direction. So it's a bad situation all the way around. And you know, all the propaganda about Ukraine's advances and getting to the first and the second line of defense, it's all just been forgotten now by the collective West media. All of the talk about Rabotinya has completely just dropped off. No one is discussing it in the collective West media. Of course, everyone is focused on the conflict in Israel and in Gaza. But for 1 month, all the stories were about how Russia is collapsing and Ukraine has captured Rabotinya and Ukraine is advancing, and Stoltenberg was coming out and saying that Ukraine is advancing step by step, and Kirby, Ukraine is advancing step by step, Milley, Ukraine is advancing, Ukraine is making progress. We always knew this was going to be a long war. And now, nothing. Crickets, nothing. No one's talking about it. Rabotinya, what? Verbove, what? What are you talking about? What is that? I don't know what you're talking about. We never said that Ukraine had captured Rabotinya. We never said that. And it leaves me speechless. The level of deceit and propaganda leaves me speechless, and it's damaging. You're talking about the lives of soldiers. Okay, so there is one. It's not all doom and gloom for the Elensky regime. Not all doom and gloom, everybody. How can I cross? Come on. There is the news that the House Speaker could be Steve Scalise. Now, why is this not bad news for the Elensky regime? Well, it was between Steve Scalise and... I'm just going to cross. There's no light here, but whatever. Well, the news was that it was between Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan. Now, Jim Jordan, he's part of the Freedom Caucus, and he's been pretty outspoken about how there should be no more aid to Ukraine, at least not until we get some kind of audit and some kind of a roadmap as to what the United States is hoping to accomplish with all the money. And that was Jim Jordan's position. And Steve Scalise was kind of the opposite of Jim Jordan. Steve Scalise is really not that much different than his predecessor, McCarthy. They pretty much have the same position when it comes to Project Ukraine and to funding the wars. Let's see here. This is so nice. Let's walk this way. Let's go down this way. So the good news for the Elensky regime is that the Republicans, in a closed-door meeting, a closed-door vote, the Republicans in the House, they signaled their preference for Steve Scalise. Why not? He's the pro-war candidate for House Speaker. But we still don't know if he's going to get it. There still is a lot of resistance towards having Steve Scalise as the Speaker of the House. Jim Jordan was endorsed by Trump, by the way. So if Steve Scalise becomes the House Speaker, there's really no difference between McCarthy and Scalise. So just wanted to throw that out there. And let's finally talk about the conflict in Israel, in Gaza. And then we'll get to a clown world and wrap up the video. Let me, one sec here. Let me read you what Lavrov said in a statement yesterday. This is what the Russian foreign minister said, Lavrov, on the situation in Israel. It is necessary to immediately stop this conflict, comply with international humanitarian law, prevent terrorist acts, indiscriminate use of force from which civilians on both sides can and are already suffering. Of course, what President Putin said again yesterday is that it is necessary to concentrate attention on the essence of the problem. For many decades, the UN decision on the creation of a Palestinian state has been sabotaged primarily by the United States, which wants to monopolize and usurp mediation efforts, is trying to push aside Russia, the UN, and the EU, thereby disrupting the work of the quartet of international mediators in which all these parties, Russia, USA, UN, EU, are included. The president gave a comprehensive assessment of such actions. We very much hope that once this conflict is resolved, and we advocate for this to happen immediately, everyone will take seriously the responsibility to comply with the UN Security Council decision to create a Palestinian state based on the principles that were approved by the UN. Quite an excellent and comprehensive statement from Lavrov, echoing what Russian President Vladimir Putin said yesterday about the conflict in Israel and Gaza, and once again calling out the United States for its inability, let's say, for its inability to achieve a peace in the region, and perhaps it's time now to hand over the task to someone else. There's music here, so one sec. Okay, you gotta dodge the music for the algorithms. So yeah, if the U.S. has been trying, or claim they have been trying to find a peace for so long, for so many decades, and things get worse and worse, well, then Lavrov and Putin's point is perhaps it's time to move away from the U.S. mediation and get back to the UN resolutions, which is the right way to look at the problem in this region. So that was a statement from Lavrov. Now, there are negotiations taking place right now. I imagine there are intense negotiations taking place in order to find a resolution. But one of the reports coming out of CNN is that during these negotiations to resolve the conflict, the war in this area, was that the United States and Israel, they suggested that people living in Gaza, Palestinians living in Gaza, and refugees who have been asked to evacuate Gaza, that they should be allowed into Egypt, that they should leave Gaza as Israel launches airstrikes in Gaza. They should leave Gaza and go to Egypt, and Egypt should provide them a corridor to enter the country. Egypt, they have rejected this plan. Egypt has rejected this idea that was floated out by the United States and by Israel during negotiations. And this is according to CNN. And the reason that Egypt rejected this is not because they're not concerned for the safety of, one second, music again. Okay. I didn't know there was going to be so much music on this street, so apologize for that. But what was I saying? Uh, yeah, Egypt, they rejected this plan, this idea, if you want to call it an idea floated out there during negotiations. They rejected this not because they don't want the people of Gaza to be safe from the airstrikes, but Egypt understood that once they created this corridor and allowed the people of Gaza, the refugees who want to leave Gaza and enter Egypt, they understood that once this happened, the people in Gaza, once they entered Egypt, they would never be allowed to return back to Gaza. So they understood what was happening here, and so they rejected these safe corridors for refugees that were being advised to flee Gaza. So it's a really tough situation. It's a horrific situation. On the one hand, you understand that if you were to leave Gaza, you would never be allowed to return. And on the other side of things, Gaza is getting bombed. So, what do you do? It's a very, very difficult situation. But that's what happened there. And we have this title from the New York Times, which says that early intelligence shows Iranian leaders surprised by Hamas attack. The information has fueled doubts in the United States that Iran, a longtime supporter of the Palestinian militant group, played a direct role in planning the assault in Israel. So that's coming from the New York Times. Basically, they're confirming what Politico reported on yesterday, which is that it looks like Iran did not have any role to play in this conflict, in this war. So you're getting confirmation now from the New York Times as well, which once again shows that while the neocons want to start all-out war with Iran, there are people in the U.S. government that are trying to prevent an all-out war with Iran, and that's a good thing. We know that Egypt has warned the Israelis 3 days prior that an event like this could happen. McCall said following a closed-door intelligence briefing on Capitol Hill. I don't want to get too much into classified, but a warning was given, McCall continued. I think the question was at what level? Is the water too loud? Maybe I should move to a quieter spot. Goodbye, my friend. Slovenian aircraft designer, pilot, and pioneer of aviation, Edvard Rusjan. So McCall, this guy's like a neocon, if I'm right about this. He's a Republican neocon warmonger, and he's saying that Egypt warned Israel, and they have the intel which shows that Egypt warned Israel. So I think we could now say that it is confirmed that Egypt warned Israel, even though the Netanyahu administration, they've denied this. Keep in mind one thing that I don't think anyone has talked about, anyone has mentioned, so let me mention it. Netanyahu hates Biden, and Biden hates Netanyahu. Keep that in mind. They hate each other. They do not like each other. So, maybe that's a dynamic that we're not considering in all of this. Maybe the Biden White House would like to remove Netanyahu, though I'm not quite sure what role McCall would play in all this. But maybe the Biden White House, they willingly gave over this intel to Congress in order to make Netanyahu look bad, because Netanyahu, he came out and he said that these reports that Egypt warned his government about an attack are completely false. So now it's like you have the intel services of the Biden White House. They give over the intel to the House, to Congress, and Congress says, well, it looks like Egypt did warn Israel, and it kind of throws Netanyahu under the bus, doesn't it? Always keep in mind that Biden despises Netanyahu, and Netanyahu despises Professor Biden. And we have the misinformation that Iran was behind this. I think that has now been pretty much debunked, that Iran played a role in this Hamas assault. We have Politico, we have the New York Times, we have all kinds of collective West publications now saying that Iran most likely did not know that this attack was about to happen or played no role in this attack. And according to the New York Times, this Hamas attack even surprised Iran. Once again, according to intelligence, according to U.S. intelligence. So that has been debunked as well. The Iranian thread, I think we can say, has been debunked. And how about this baby's story? And then we'll get into a couple of lighter things to talk about. But this one is a serious one, and that is the claim that 40 babies were beheaded. A horrific story, a horrific report, which I believe initiated with an Israeli soldier giving this information to an I-24 news reporter. I talked about this in my video yesterday, but I forgot her name. And she has since this claim came out, since she reported on this, she has walked back these claims, because the minute she reported on this about the 40 babies, this was picked up by every news outlet. Every news outlet picked this up, and this was being used as a way to escalate and ramp up the conflict. Well, even Biden, he picked up on this story, on this report from I-24, and as he was speaking yesterday, he said, and I quote, "I never really thought that I would have confirmed pictures of terrorists beheading children," end quote. That is what Biden said as he was speaking yesterday. And when Biden made that statement, the White House, this is the interesting part, the White House immediately had to issue a retraction of this statement from the president. And I'm reading you an article from the Times of Israel. White House: Biden has not seen or independently confirmed Hamas beheading Israeli children. This is coming from the Times of Israel. The White House clarifies that President Joe Biden and other U.S. officials have not seen or independently confirmed that Hamas terrorists beheaded Israeli children. The clarification comes after Biden told Jewish leaders at the White House, "It is important for Americans to see what is happening. I have been doing this for a long time. I have thought that I would have confirmed pictures of terrorists beheading children." A White House spokesperson says the president based his comments on claims from Netanyahu's spokesman and media reports from Israel. Once again, Biden throwing Netanyahu under the bus. The Biden White House throwing Netanyahu under the bus. So Biden said this during his statements yesterday, because according to the Biden White House, this is what he heard from Netanyahu's spokesman. And we already know that this entire narrative about the babies is being walked back. Like by the second, it's being walked back. But there you have it. That is the post, the article from the Times of Israel. So let's now talk about Elensky and what Elensky said when he was at NATO HQ. By the way, this is clown world territory now. And Elensky, speaking to the media, he said that the big super duper counteroffensive didn't succeed because it wasn't just a big super duper counteroffensive. It was also a big super duper counter defensive. This is what Elensky said as he was speaking to the media in Brussels.
Saying how to defend, just to stay each day and defend. It's not about counteroffensive. Counteroffensive, it's one direction, but you also have to defend because opposite you, Russia, big army of these terrorists.
So that's Elensky, big super duper counter defensive. that is why everything did not work out as they were hoping it would work out, because the Ukraine military, they not only had to go on the offensive, but they also had to play defense as well. And Zelensky said that the Russian army are terrorists. I don't know how that goes. I don't know how you can have the professional Russian army and then also call them terrorists at the same time. Anyway, Elensky said that as well, but basically his point was that, he admitted that the big super duper counteroffensive has failed. Essentially, that's what he's admitting, that it failed, and the excuse is that it failed because Ukraine had to defend. They had to defend against the Russian advances, which is an admission that the Russians can and are advancing. Once again, it goes against the narrative that they were feeding us, everyone, all this time, which was that Ukraine was advancing ever so slowly. They were capturing villages and Rabotinya and Verbove and breaking through the first and the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth and the 10th line of defense. That's what they were telling us over the past month. And all of this propaganda, all of these lies are starting to unravel. And the final clown world here, Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks. He has announced that he is running for president. Cenk Uygur, yes, I'm running against Joe Biden for the Democratic nomination. Joe Biden is down 24 points on the economy. He has no ability to make up that kind of ground on the most important issue. We need a new candidate now. Cenk Uygur was not born in the United States. I believe he was born in Turkey, but he said he's going to seek the nomination for the presidency for the Democrat Party nonetheless. And he is basically saying that Joe Biden should drop out now. If he drops out now, he will go down in history as a hero. I don't know where how he comes up with that one, but he goes down as a hero because he saved the U.S. from the big bad orange man. And if Biden stays and he decides to run for president, Cenk Uygur believes that Trump will defeat Biden, and then Biden will go down as a villain because he ran against Trump knowing that he could not win, and the big bad orange man becomes president again. And so Cenk Uygur, he is swooping in to save America. We truly are living in a clown world. We truly are living in a clown world. To save America, to save democracy. That is what Cenk Uygur is doing. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop, 20% off. Use the code TheDuran20. How do I get over there? On the other side. That's where I want to be. All right. Take care.